in, and it was all my fault.
That's all right. So hopefully everyone can find the correct stream (S) to attend here. But it's Casual Friday, so grab your favorite adult beverage or combustible plant and come hang out with us while we talk about what's new and newsworthy in the tabletop industry. And today we're mostly going to be talking about the yes, Twin Stream. Sorry about that. We will learn much from this and not repeat those mistakes next time. Possibly we might do it again. That's possible, also possible. So mostly we're going to talk about the rest of the new 2024 D&D classes, but we've got a couple things to... Oh, I didn't click on that. Or did I? I don't know. So first, just real quick, I want to say, hey, I'm doing a giveaway right now. There should be a link down in the description, jimesca.com/contest. I'm giving away this very expensive Dungeons & Dragons Lego set. And you know what I discovered? When I went to go buy it for the giveaway, I was like, man, I really want my own, but they only let you have one per household. So I'm thinking about maybe trying to talk my neighbor into buying one, and then I'll give him the cash for it. Because after holding this thing in my hands, I really, really want one.
Well, I've got about 17 entries now, so if I win it, you can keep it. Because I've been coveting that thing.
I don't know if employees of the One Page One Shot Club are eligible to enter and win the giveaway. We'll have to see. Another newsworthy thing is that Kyle Brink is out at WotC. And Jen Lanzillo, I think. This person. I know there was an article about it, and there was one thing that was really interesting that Bob Worldbuilder pointed out in a Discord group where it says, where is it? Gatekeeping and toxicity are known problems in other fandoms, but D&D seems to have sidestepped those kinds of issues. And I'm wondering if this interviewer has ever heard of Dungeons & Dragons before.
I mean, yeah, so that was the interviewer, not the exec, I think should be pointed out. I get in trouble when I talk about this every time because I get an army of grognards being like, it was always inclusive. And like, sure, maybe your table was. Yeah. However, there's some problematic Gary Gygax quotes in the golden era. They couldn't figure out why women didn't want to play with them. And the conclusion was because their brains were different. So yeah, there were some things going on. And I think now it's an incredibly inclusive, diverse hobby. And I love that. And we should celebrate that at every opportunity. However, to pretend that there's never any gatekeeping or exclusivity going on, I think does a lot of people who maybe don't necessarily look like us disservice.
Yeah, indeed. Well, about Jen, I wish her well and hope that she turns out to be a good steward of the brand.
I will say I feel bad for Kyle. I didn't know him. I am not important enough for him to reach out when he did his apology tour. But I am sure he didn't make any of the decisions he was responsible for attempting to explain for a few months there in the heart of that OGL crisis. So
yeah, he definitely got thrown in the deep end.
Yeah, I wish him well.
He will forever be known for something he said taken completely out of context.
That
people
too.
in the hobby. Yeah, that's probably going to be his legacy.
Yeah, at least in this hobby. It's a small but deep niche. So yeah.
Who knows? Maybe he has kids in an entirely fulfilling life outside of tabletop role-playing games that we don't know anything about. His legacy may be that he's an awesome break dancer. We don't even know. He could be the world's best break dancer.
Right. At the very least, I'm sure he has a pretty good resume to have gotten hired in the first place at that high level of management. So I think he'll probably be okay.
Yeah, we hope so. So you guys want to talk about the classes?
I would love to.
So we've talked about a lot of them already, and all we have left are the monk, the cleric, the bard, and the sorcerer. And I have queued up the breakdancing crypto dad. Yeah, I heard about that a couple weeks ago. The woman posted that her dad took off, like abandoned the family to go become a professional breakdancer. If that's the one we're talking about.
I am out of the loop on this one. I can do some homework after this.
It was a meme from like 5 weeks ago, so it's already ancient history,
Gotta move
Then
fast. on the
Hawk
internet.
2 a girl came along, and that was all anyone could talk about.
She did take over. She's a sensation.
All over the place.
All right, let's talk about the monk.
Uh,
I'll read. Oh, go ahead, Brad.
I was going to say, short answer, I love it.
Yeah, I agree. I've been scripting out videos on all these new classes, and the monk was definitely the longest, most complicated section to record because they did a lot for the monk. Starting off at level 1, monks now get proficiency with all simple melee weapons and martial weapons with a light property, which basically just takes the good parts of the Kensei monk and folds them into... But instead of not just with the Kensei where you have to specifically specialize in certain weapons, monks now just get all of them. And the upgrade everyone expected, the martial arts die now starts at a D6, goes to a D8 at level 5, then I think a D10 at level 11, and then a D12 at level 17. And also, they can, when they do a bonus action unarmed strike, they can use Dex instead of Strength to punch, grapple, or shove. And they get all of this at level 1.
Yeah, it really just is everything you want in the monk. Like right there, level 1, you feel like a martial artist right away. I think that's good design.
And that all weaves in nicely with I just totally blanked on my favorite part of 0.5, the martial Nick and everything. Oh man, I didn't sleep enough last night.
The weapon mastery.
The weapon mastery. Thank you. Too many systems rattling around in Ryan's head these days. And grapple and shove is a little more appealing out of the gate for everybody, and now they're using their decks to do it. They're benefiting from every improvement to the martials, and then they went back and improved the monk big time.
Yeah.
So I'm excited.
Now the monk's not getting the weapon mastery stuff though, right? They took that out. They had that in the playtest, but I think they got rid of it.
Oh, did they pull? I thought they got less. They got 0? Okay. That's possible.
There's nothing in this article about weapon mastery.
Okay, maybe I conflated it with the UA.
There's probably a way to get it with feats though, so you probably could build a monk and be able to get it either by dipping fighter. So I'm sure there's going to be some creative builds to get monk weapon mastery options.
Yeah, I think they've dumped the idea of the class groups, right? The expert, the warrior, the priest, and the mage. And I think before they were saying the warrior group was getting weapon mastery. But I don't think... I haven't seen anything about those class groups since they've been doing this big media blitz. They haven't mentioned it in any of the videos.
No, I think that design has gone away. They might do that just for categorization, but I don't think there's any specific design elements that are exclusive to those groups anymore.
Yeah, they did away with they I think they also did away with the 3 spell categories, right? The divine, arcane, and primal, and just went back to class spell lists. So
Right.
those were
Yeah.
two huge changes from the UA that never made it. Level 2, Monk's Focus. Patient Defense now allows disengage as a bonus action for free, or spend a focus point, which is what they're calling key points now, to disengage and dodge as a bonus action. Also, Step of the Wind allows dash as a bonus action for free, or spend a focus point to disengage and dash as a bonus action and have your jump distance doubled. So now the monk just gets for free disengage, dash, basically all the same things as the rogue except for hide, which I like a lot because as someone who's played monks before, they can do so much cool stuff with their bonus action that they could do too much stuff with their bonus action, and all of it costs key points. But when you're in combat and you can punch 2 more times for 1 key point, it seems silly to spend key points on anything else. So being able to do this stuff for free disengage or free dash, good day, Swords and Stones.
No.
Yeah, I think this is a huge upgrade, just the ability to do disengage and dash. Free disengage is amazing because Monk is always so much better as a stick and move fighter anyway. You know, when you're a monk, you want to punch and then get out of there, because if you stay there while they all attack with your D8 hit dice, you're in trouble.
Right.
Yeah, I like it a lot. Anything that puts more mobility into 5e combat, I am here for. And Monk is supposed to be like the apex of that mobility.
Right.
Yeah.
They should be like the ultimate skirmisher, the in, out, flank, all those things.
And in general, I've noticed across a lot of these class updates, they're doing a lot more things like giving you abilities that allow you to move a certain number of feet without provoking opportunity attacks, which is very welcome because of opportunity attacks. I see so many times that it's just like rush in, stay there until that monster's dead, then we're going to move to the other monster, and it's like, why even have a battle map? Because nobody's moving around because everybody's too scared of opportunity attacks.
Right. Well, and maybe when we finish up the classes, there's some notice about monster design that are relevant to that too. So.
Yeah, Twin Steel, I know Bob Worldbuilder did a video about deleting opportunity attacks from his game. With my main home group, we switched to Daggerheart about a month ago, and there's no opportunity attacks in Daggerheart, but my players are so conditioned about opportunity attacks, they don't want to move once they get into position in battle. And I'm like, you guys can move. And they just don't believe me. They think I'm lying to them. The monster's going to hit them when they try to move away.
Classic problem. I think Pathfinder 2e did a good job where opportunity attacks are in the game, but not the default. Like some enemy combatants and like some player characters have the opportunity to earn them, to get them, to use them, but it's not the baseline. Most things don't have an attack of opportunity.
Hmm.
And I think that kind of hints at what Brad was hinting at, monsters, which is always my favorite part of. It's like, give me cool things to do with reactions.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Also, at level 2, monks get Uncanny Metabolism, which lets them regain all focus points when they roll initiative once per day. Kind of like with the new the Warlock's new feature that lets them spend a minute meditating to get back half of their spell slots, rounded up. But this is better because you get back all your focus points, which, when you're playing a short rest class with a party with a bunch of long rest classes, I feel like you have to beg for that short rest after combat.
Kind of feels like an acknowledgement of that. Just like, well, we know you're probably not going to short rest, so here you go.
Yeah. At least once a day you can get them all back without having to spend an hour meditating.
Yeah, and I think that was something I was realizing as I was watching all the videos, is that a lot of the design effort is put into trying to manage this adventuring day, right? And the part of that, the managing the short rest, managing the long rest, getting some stuff back on a short rest, but not everything, getting some stuff back just once without a short rest, like all that design effort is going into trying to to create that game balance, right? That everybody's concerned about. I'm curious what it would be like if you just did away with all that and like, here's your pool of resources, manage it because you're the player. Be smart. Don't dump it all in the first combat, right? If you just completely went away from that design principle and just gave the player, here's all your cool abilities, figure it out.
Just like dailies.
Right. Well, like still have like you got so many of these a day, right? Because that's the traditional. Like if you go back to AD&D, that's what spell slots were, right?
Yeah.
You had so many spell slots. You only got them back after a long rest, and you had to figure out how to manage those across multiple combats, right? Or encounters. But it's just looking at just the design aspect as a whole, there's just a whole lot of effort going into the design to make the game balanced, which one is just interesting the way the game has evolved that way. And two, like you got to kind of give Wizards credit for trying to be as creative as possible with like getting these abilities back on short rests versus long rests and, different ways to get them back, exchanging abilities for spell slots, all that sort of stuff. Because they're clearly doing all of that work in the design space to try to make, a series of balanced encounters.
Yeah,
But at the same time, I wonder if you could just like do away with it all, with all the like back and forth,
Yeah, I think if this wasn't backwards compatible, right? It feels like they've painted themselves into a corner a little bit, so they're duct taping things on because they can't get to the foundation right now.
Right.
If only we could find balance in real life.
If I could only find balance in real life.
Ain't that the truth?
No doubt.
Life is a very high CR monster, and we know that high CR monsters are very difficult to balance against. Moving on, at level 3, deflect attacks, which is a huge upgrade from deflect missiles. Reduce the damage of melee or ranged attacks that deal bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage by 1d10 plus dex plus monk level. If damage is reduced to 0, spend a focus point to redirect the damage. A melee attack can be directed at a creature within 5 feet, while ranged against a creature within 60 feet. Target makes a dex saving throw or takes damage equal to 2 rolls of your martial arts die plus your dex modifier. As far as I can tell, you can use this on every attack, right? It doesn't say limited to once per turn or anything like that.
It doesn't here, and that feels a little crazy to me. Like, is this a reaction? I don't know. I saw this, I was like, this is awesome, and then I was like, is it too awesome?
Let's click down to here. It doesn't say anything about using your reaction. Doesn't say anything about that.
Any attack that includes. Yeah, it seems like it doesn't. There's no limit to that.
Yeah. I was about to say, and Twin still also said it, that in the UA it was a reaction. So.
Yeah,
in the UA it was a reaction.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, this is an article, right? This is an article by the people who made the thing. But this isn't. Right. We're not looking at the new PHB here. So I'm not going to be. I'm suspicious there may be omissions, or some things might be close to the chest.
Yeah, right. and I mean it also doesn't do anything for you saving throw damage.
True.
Which is at higher levels a lot more impactful. But yeah, this does seem kind of overpowered, that it becomes nigh on impossible to deal any kind of damage to a monk when your 10th level monk is reducing it by 1d10, every attack by 1d10 plus 15, probably at level 10. So 20 damage. That's like a damage threshold. If you want to attack a monk, you're gonna have to hit him for at least 20
Yeah.
damage in one attack.
Except it's not static, so you're adding one extra step to every attack against the monk, and I'm sure that will also slow down an already complex combat system.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and then is it at this level or how you can send that damage back to the target, right?
If it
And
hits
then
zero,
they have to make a saving throw.
yeah, which I mean that's like monk power fantasy, right? Like that, like Aikido. If you reduce it to zero, I think it costs a key point or focus. It costs a focus point, but if
Yeah.
you take it down to
Okay.
zero, you can throw it back at the guy.
Right. So you're adding 2 steps there, right? So you're adding the damage reduction and then adding a saving throw. So it's
Yeah.
not going to be every time the monk takes damage, but you're adding 2 extra steps or potentially 2 extra steps. At least, each turn the monk takes damage.
Yeah, I know in regular 5e, deflect missiles takes a reaction. I'm pretty
It's
sure
got-
about that.
Yeah, it's got to be in a mission, and if it's not, like I might have to homebrew this one.
Yeah. Limited to once per turn using a reaction or otherwise just once per turn. Some subclass info. Warrior of Mercy. They're no longer the way of, they're now warriors of. Flurry of Healing Hands can now be used a number of times per long rest equal to Wisdom modifier. I've seen this sort of change across a lot of things. They're eliminating a lot of proficiency bonus times per day to try to nerf multiclassing a bit. Flurry of Healing Hands. I played a warrior or Way of the Mercy monk in 5e, and the Healing Hands is nice, but I ended up not using it because it's not that much healing. So I wonder if you get more healing from your Healing Hands now.
It seems a design principle that they are increasing heals, right? They buffed Healing Word and Cure Wounds. It seems like they're trying to make healing more viable. I think Brad was making an argument that it could disincentivize yo-yo healing, which doesn't feel great narrative-wise. So I don't know, but I would bet it maybe is more effective.
Yeah. Warrior of the Shadow. Shadow Arts now offers greater flexibility with how you manipulate and use them. Shadows, along with Pass Without Trace and Silence, have been removed. New feature Cloak of Shadows replaces Opportunist and grants a much more persistent invisibility effect. We'll have to see more about that when the PHP comes out. Warrior of the Elements. Way of the Four Elements has been entirely reworked, which is good because that class was BS, or the subclass was bunk. Much more flexible and efficient with its use of focus points, allowing you to create torrents of elemental damage. And Warrior of the Open Hand, another one that I've played that I liked quite a bit. A few subtle changes. Open Hand technique blocks opportunity attacks rather than all reactions. Wholeness of Body now a bonus action, and Quivering Palm no longer reduces a target to 0 hit points. Do you guys have any thoughts on the other subclasses here?
I want to play the Avatar, so I am cautiously optimistic that Warrior of the Elements is going to be satisfying. I don't need it to be the strongest thing in the game. I just want it to be not bad.
Yeah, same here. The Warrior of the Elements, like the old Way of the Four Elements, was the class I was most excited to play when I opened up the 2014 PHP, and quickly realized that it was practically unplayable. It was just a huge disappointment. So I'm really looking forward to Warrior of the Elements for sure.
Indeed. All right, moving on. We got to pick up the pace a little bit. Level 5 is our first nerf because Stunning Strike, I'll just read this, requires a monk weapon or unarmed strike. Stun condition lasts till the start of your next turn rather than the end. On a successful save, the target speed is halved, and the next attack against them has advantage. But the big nerf is that it can only be used once per turn. Now, in my experience playing a monk, when I was level 5 and 6, I felt like I was the most powerful member of the party. Because I would roll high in initiative, I would run in, boom, stunning strike this guy, boom, stunning strike that guy, run out, and there were only 1 or 2 baddies left who could do anything in that first turn. And I would be like, it felt amazing. But by the time I got to be like level 8 and 9, everyone else in the party had very much surpassed me, because by level 8 and 9, we're going up against monsters who have plus 10 to their con saves. So I couldn't stun anybody anymore. But this gives you a very useful effect, even if they still pass their con save.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's better designed because there's not that save or suck kind of feeling, right? Like it either works or it doesn't. Right now you get this, you're going to get something either way when you use that ability.
Yeah, just like Twin Steel says, having some sort of backup effect to compensate.
Yeah, because it was OP and then not worth trying anymore. And this does feel more balanced.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I like what they've done with Stunning Strike here. Also, the fact that you could only use it once per turn. Sometimes I found myself wasting 3 or 4 key points in one turn because I'm like, go down! Just go down! Spitting out Stunning Strike on every single, on Flurry of Blows and both of my attacks. And be like, before I realized that I just spent 5 key points, I spent half my key points in this one first round just trying to stun this one guy. At level 5, you get Empowered Strike. You can choose to deal force damage instead of bludgeoning for unarmed strikes. This replaces what in the 2014 Monk you'd get at level 6, which it would say that your unarmed strikes count as magical for the purposes of overcoming magic resistance, which is a lot of words, and this condenses it into much fewer words by just saying that you can do force damage.
Right.
Yeah, and it's right in line with that, like, Hadouken, Sonic Boom. Like, this is, I want a monk to do force damage when they're dope enough.
Absolutely. Level 10, you get Heightened Focus. It says improves Flurry of Blows. Flurry of Blows gets 3 attacks. Patient Defense grants temporary hit points equal to 2 rolls of your martial arts die. That is a lot. Step of the Wind now allows you to move a willing creature with you, and that willing creature does not get opportunity attacks. Let's see if it says exactly what the improved Flurry of Blows are. Flurry of Blows grants an additional attack. Patient Defense now grants you 2 hit points. When you Step of the Wind, you can move... Oh, so they're all listed right there. I was too busy reading them to actually comprehend what I was saying. I was reading it. So Flurry of Blows gives you 3 per bonus action, which was previously just a Drunken Master feature.
Mm-hmm.
But it looks like the Drunken Master is gone, so they just brought that over to the main monk, which is dope. Which, if now you think about it, a level 17 monk is doing potentially 5d12 damage in 1 turn with 1 spend of a focus point for Flurry of Blows. That's a lot.
Yeah. Kind of in retrospect, it almost seems like they used the Tasha's and Xanathar's subclasses to test out various designs for the monk to see what worked well. And then now they're just taking those that kind of solved the problem of the 2014 monk, and they're just working it into the core class. Which is kind of an interesting parallel, because second edition did something like on a broader scale, same kind of thing. Towards the end of second edition, they introduced kits, and that was basically, in retrospect, it was kind of like a play test for subclasses for third edition.
That brings up an interesting question. They've pulled in lots of subclass and other things from Tasha's. Have they included anything from Xanathar's? Did Xanathar have
That's a good
subclasses? I
question.
can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
the
did.
Tasha's ones were so much more like impactful and power creepy that they're like seared in my brain in a way that the Xanathar's ones aren't. Celestial Warlock Twin Steel says, and they know what they're talking about. Yeah, there's subclasses in Xanathar's off the top of my head. The Tasha ones are the ones that give me a trouble as a dungeon master, so those are the ones I'm more familiar with.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look it up. Keep talking about the monk. I'm gonna look it up because I'm curious.
Okay. Also level 10, the monk can just decide to stop being charmed, frightened, or poisoned at the end of the turn. Before, I don't know if all monks had it, or maybe it was just the open hand monk could stop being charmed, but it would take an action. And there was the caveat, the fact that it would take an action. I remember having an argument with my dungeon master about it because he would say, this creature will not allow you to spend your action doing that. And I was saying, well, what's the, like, because I'm charmed, I have to spend my action doing what that creature tells me to do. So I was saying, well, what's the point of the ability then if I can't spend my action to do this? And it was just sort of like there was enough wiggle room in the rules that it was very unclear. But now it doesn't take any action spend. You do it at the end of your turn. Would Natasha Romanoff be considered a monk for her physical fighting abilities without her guns? You know, I think the argument over what class Black Widow is has been raging for years. You could say she's a rogue. You could say she's a fighter. You could say she's a monk. Who knows?
Hello, Wolfion.
What's that?
I was just saying hello to Wolfion. He just joined us. Yeah, I would definitely say Tasha's an open hand monk.
Also, at level 10, going without food or drink doesn't cause exhaustion, which is sort of like before. It just, I think it was called Timeless Body. It just said you no longer require food or drink, which I really liked because I liked playing the idea of playing a creature who didn't have to poop. That's the best flavor I've ever seen in a D&D class. Me, no, I don't eat or drink because I don't excrete.
We've learned something about Jim's power fantasy today.
Oh, the time you save by avoiding going to the can. Oh.
Stopping at the store. No, I don't need any toilet paper. No, I'm good. And I guess it still works that way because you can go without food or drink. But what they got rid of was the effect that you no longer age, and you couldn't die from old age, or you said you no longer feel the effects of old age, so you could be like a Fists of Fury great grandma, which is also great flavor, and they took that away. Why'd they take away our punchy great grandmas?
Oh.
We've gained a lot, but we've lost. What we lose is flavor in a lot of these. I've found some things that are like didn't really have much of an effect. They replaced with something that does, so it's more powerful. But yeah, don't love it. Hey,
good morning, Wizards and Warp.
Not Joe. He's on the other side of the planet.
Yeah,
he just woke up.
Good day, mate. Sweet as. Good day, mate. All right. At level 13, deflect attacks now applies to all damage types. So before you could redirect bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing. Now it's any damage type. So if you get hit with firebolt, or if you get hit with a Cone of Cold, is that an attack or saving throw?
Cone of Cold saving throw, right?
Ray of Frost. I always get those two confused. Yeah, so you can Hadouken deflect that right out of the way.
I love it.
Yeah.
No notes.
No notes.
It's OP, but we love it. It
Yeah.
feels like they really just went like this is the monk apology tour.
Yes.
They're really saying, we know we did the monk dirty, have all the things.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish they had taken that same apology tour with the Ranger, because
Yes, same.
the Ranger is still kind of a disappointment in my book.
Yes.
Which this accomplishes what they didn't do with the Ranger. Not only did they give the monk cool stuff, and I don't think the Ranger needed as much cool stuff as the monk did, because the Ranger wasn't that bad in my opinion. But what they failed to do with the Ranger is give it like real flavor. Like they need to decide what a D&D Ranger is supposed to be like, and because that's one thing they've done really well across all the other classes is lean into the fantasy of that class, right? You want your rogue to feel like they're breaking the rules. You want the monk to be able to, do these skirmisher style attacks and do these cool things that we've seen in kung fu movies. You want your wizard to be the most wizardy wizard, and so forth and so on. And the Ranger, they don't have an identity for the Ranger, so how you can't really build to make the Ranger cool, because we don't know what cool is for a Ranger, right? They haven't like set that tone. But coming back to the monk, they do that here. I think they capture like everything you want in the kung fu power fantasy here.
Yes, I 100% agree with that. A level fitting. Now, if you don't use Uncanny Metabolism and have fewer than 4 focus points, go back up to 4 focus points when rolling initiative. So I guess that's saying if you have already spent your Uncanny Metabolism for the day to get all your FP back, and if you have 0, 1, 2, or 3 focus points, you automatically start combat with 4. I've noticed this a few times. They're bringing this back, this sort of 4E and maybe even earlier idea of when rolling initiative, these things happen, which kind of rebirths the bag of rats problem, doesn't it?
Let me think about that.
Because if you have the bag of rats, you're out of focus points, but you need to do something like double your jump distance. I'm going to dump these rats on the floor and start punching them so I can get some key points back.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
the difference is that
spammable.
the DM is the one who declares when you roll initiative, though. Right?
Yeah. Is that
So
different from how it was in 3.5 or 4.0?
Well, no, I mean, I think that's just the idea of like, if you dump a bag of rats on the floor and attack them as a DM, I can just say, okay, you beat up the rats. Right? I don't have to say, okay, roll initiative against the rats. Right?
All right, yeah, that's fair. That's a good point. And finally, or almost finally, at level 18, spend 3 focus points at the start of your turn. You gain resistance to all damage types except force for 1 minute. Before, you used to, at level 18, you used to be able to turn invisible for a minute, which may have been overpowered. Level 20, their capstone ability is pretty dope. Increase your wisdom and dex scores by 4 each. So at level 20, if you're a multi-attribute dependent class like the monk, you're probably not stocking up on feats because you got to get your dex and your wisdom up to 20. So probably by level 20, then you bump that up. You're going to have your dex and your wisdom of 24. So you're attacking with, that's what, plus 7 on your attacks. And your key save DC is going to be like 22, 23 around there.
Yeah.
It's pretty nice.
This is nice.
Yeah.
This is nice.
Very nice. That's Borat. It's a very topical cultural reference.
You gotta let the kids know now.
All right. So to answer our Xanathar's question, I looked it up while you were going through all that. So Path of the Zealot is in the new version, right? That was from Xanathar's. And the Way of the Sun Soul was in Xanathar's, which is not going to be in the new edition, but you can tell that they pulled elements from that subclass to build the new monk, the new Warrior of the Element monk. So the mechanics of the Way of the Sun Soul you can kind of see that design in the Way of the Four Elements. Gloomstalker was the Ranger subclass from Xanathar's, and that's in the new edition. And the Shadow Sorcerer, that's going to be in the new edition, right? That was from Xanathar's. And Celestial Warlock. So there's some from Xanathar's.
I put Gloomstalker and Tasha's in my mind because it's good.
Well, it's interesting how they've mentioned Tasha's so many times during all of these Jeremy Crawford videos. I haven't heard them say Xanathar's at all.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. I wonder why that is.
And I do hear Tasha's get said pretty quickly after we redid this from the ground up. We totally remade this thing by repeating what happened in Tasha's.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just me. That might be confirmation bias.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see if those books are going to be deprecated within a couple of years. That's my conspiracy theory, is that 2026, they're going to say these are legacy books. They're going to bring out a new book that's going to be, Illustrial Silverhand's guide to the universe, and it's going to have all the stuff from those books that they didn't include that they still like, with a few new subclasses, and put that out, and that will be the new Tasha's.
Yeah, the way I understand it, you can make a character from PHB 2024, and that's it. Or you can make 2014 characters with Tasha's or whatever, but no mixy matchy. So that's I think it's a cute way. No?
They implied, they kind of said in the cleric video that you could mix and match, but they had specific guidance for the cleric on like what you couldn't do. You couldn't add, I forget what the example was, but Jeremy gave specific examples of the 2014 ability and the 2024 ability and how you couldn't get both. So they might put out some guidance on how to take the subclasses that aren't represented in 2024 and be able to pull the 2014 subclasses, over. Because that's what he seemed to say in that cleric video. So I'll be interested to see if there's a, article on D&D Beyond or like a downloadable supplement or something that'll show us how to convert the 2014 subclasses.
Yeah. And I would just like to point out that Ravenlore says that I'm right. So I'm marking that down as a point for me.
He knows what he's talking about. When was he right? I don't remember him being right today. What are you talking about specifically?
That doesn't sound correct. Something's fishy here. Ravenlore's my burner account. You guys didn't know.
Yeah.
Welcome to Casual Fridays, where the points don't matter anyway.
Yes.
Right. All right, let's talk about bards. And I'm going to need you guys to do more of the talking because I've never played a bard. Never been interested. Never been interested.
Interesting. I like a support caster. I like being involved in everybody else's turn. It keeps you engaged. It keeps you aware of everything else that's going around the table. As a bard, you're not sitting there waiting for your turn to come around. You're paying attention the whole time. So players, play more bards, but not the Mimi bard. Forget that.
All right, so Ryan, you're a resident bard expert now.
Cool.
I have never played a bard either.
Really? Wow. Okay, that's surprising.
Wow, okay.
I think bards get a bad rap, for good reason. But yeah, I like a support caster.
Yeah. All right. So level 1, it seems like quite a lot of the bard's features have to do with bardic inspiration. At level 1, creatures granted bardic now get it for an hour instead of 10 minutes. Bardic can be rolled after a creature fails a d20 test, which before in the 2014 rulebook it said something like you can add it after you make the roll, but before the dungeon master tells you whether you passed or failed. So now you can specifically add it after the DM tells you that you failed.
Yeah, and it kind of, the old way kind of makes sense in like the White Room scenario, but like whenever you had a bard at the table, you would have to like, or at least I found myself as a dungeon master like waiting to announce the outcome because my impulse is to say it and keep things moving, and you would actually like remove somebody's ability to use that inspiration because you said the words. So I like this a lot better in the flow of play, even if it is maybe tipping the scales further in the player's favor.
Also, Bardic Inspiration can now be granted to a creature who can hear or see you. And in 2014, it just said a creature who can hear you.
And that feels like we're acknowledging that it's not just music, right? Because we got College of Dance, or what? We got the Dance Academy Bard now. We got some like other performance-based.
And I think this may be also an attempt to be more inclusive. If a character is, if a person is playing, for example, a mute PC, so it doesn't have to have that requirement of being able to hear the person.
Mind-based inspiration. You also have like, there's a deaf condition, there's a blind condition in this game.
Yes.
So
yeah.
If you're blinded and you can't see the mime, you're out of luck, I guess. But otherwise,
yeah, Ravenlore. Now I want to play a mime College of Dance bard. Yes.
Yes. All right. Expertise now is at level 2 instead of level 3. Song of Rest is gone. Brad, tell us what Song of Rest was. I mean, Ryan, our bard expert.
Song of Rest improved healing during short rests, and it feels like they're kind of acknowledging that short rests weren't working for them. I don't like that actually, but maybe it's a practical fix, and I'm interested in how the rest of it seems like they're getting away from short rests. So
well, that's interesting because with a lot of classes, they have specifically new short rest benefits. Like
it's
like the
weird.
druid getting a wild shape back, and the fighter getting back second wind. Barbarian gets back 1 rage on a short rest. Like seems like they've gone out of their way to make some classes more short rest friendly. So that is, maybe they just felt like it was too overpowered to do it every short rest. With the subclasses,
I guess
go ahead, Brad.
I just had a thought on that. If you're encouraging all the other classes to take short rests more often, then maybe the expectation is they're going to be taking it more often, and then Song of Rest would be overpowered.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Interesting.
Yeah.
This is pretty funny. I gotta highlight this one. The dad bard who said, cutting words, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed.
I made a soccer coach. I made a TV soccer coach one. Yeah. It's a good archetype. I also made Jack Black once, and that was one of my favorite characters. I think that might have just been a one shot, but I made Jack Black.
Skadoosh. All right. The College of Dance is a new subclass. The College of Glamour replaces enthralling performance with beguiling magic. College of Lore no longer has immunity rules against cutting words. College of Valor can now use a simpler martial weapon as a spellcasting focus and use a cantrip on your extra attack. Ryan, you have any thoughts about these? I don't know what some of these words mean.
College of Valor feels like it's flirting with Bladesinger with that, which means may be playable. You don't see a lot of College of Valor out there, or you see some disappointed players that I'll talk out of College of Valor because there's better ways to get to that place. But this it seems like a buff. It seems like a buff. I'm confused about weapon expertise now, so I'm not going to go back out on that limb. But that also might be a part of this. But again, as Brad very insightfully pointed out, pulling features that they've experimented with in, I believe it's Tasha's, because I have a lot of trouble running for him. The Bladesinger Wizard has this second attack cantrip feature, and it really broadens out the playstyle.
Yeah.
All right. At level 5, Bard's can expend a spell slot to regain 1 use of Bardic Inspiration. Okay. Level 7. This is interesting. Counter Charm, which used to take an action, right? I believe Counter Charm used to take an action. Oh. Fred, that's Fred, right?
Hey, yeah, it's Fred. What's up, Fred?
Hi, Fred. Counter Charm is now level 7, and it's a reaction used after a creature fails a saving throw to avoid being charmed or frightened. And also, it doesn't say it here, but I know they've said it in the video, that the target gets advantage on the reroll against the charm or frighten.
Hmm.
Which is pretty powerful.
Yeah, because that feels like double advantage. That's the third. I'm rolling 3 dice now to make the save.
Yeah. Can you use this unlimited amount of times, or does it cost a spell slot? Your ally gets to roll to save the advantage. Your allies now have up to 3 chances to succeed.
Okay, yeah, there it is.
This feature doesn't have a limited number of uses. Wow. So it's just an unlimited feature. Pretty powerful.
That feels very strong. Yeah.
Expertise at level 9. Magical secrets. They explained this one in the... Jeremy Crawford explained this one in the video, but I still found it a little bit confusing. Because magical secrets, correct me if I'm wrong here, Ryan, but the way it worked before is that you just picked a spell, and that was your spell, right?
It was limited. Yeah, and it happened. It happened once. 90% sure. Whenever your number of prepared spells increases, so it turns on every level. You're almost multi-classing at that point. Like, I can pull a spell from anybody. All right, but they do get away from like a little bit of the cheesy. I'm gonna take Eldritch Blast. I'm gonna take, they Warlock is not on that list. Paladin's not on that list. Ranger's not on that list. I mean, I guess Hunter's Mark maybe is worth talking about now that it scales, but it is no, it's not just arcane, but it's more focused, so it feels balanced, maybe less cheesy, but we'll see. Jury's out. Jury's still out for a lot of this in my mind.
The jury is out, according to our bard expert.
Yeah, they said that the cleric, druid, and wizard were like supposed to represent the main pool of spells. That those other classes, warlock and paladin, and ranger, their spells were more specific to their class, so they didn't want the bard like poaching spells from those spell lists.
And I like that. I like barriers between the class identities. Multi-classing is a thing. You want to create a character that you have in your mind. Cool, I'm here for it. But like, I want a bard to feel like a bard. There's different ways to do it, but I don't want it to feel like, oh, I can do this, this, and this, and now I'm a better ranger than a ranger, or I'm a better rogue than a rogue, whatever class we're talking about. Come at me.
Hot take from Ryan. Hot take. Superior inspiration level, we can get back 2 uses of bardic instead of 1. Is that just like the warlock thing of meditating to get back your spell slots? Restored when you use bardic if your pool is depleted when you roll initiative. Oh, okay. So the bard is also going to be carrying around a bag of rats. Just kidding. Okay, epic boon. Words of creation always have power word heal and power word kill. Is the spell out yet?
Yep. and then they can cast it on 2 targets.
Yeah, that's what Twin Still's pointing out, and it's true. It's that yeah, exactly. It steps on the wizard's toes, which again is the thing that I will. That's the mountain I'll die on. Here's another hot take. I don't care about capstones, really. Like that seems to be a lot of people flip to like, what do I get at level 20? It's like that's 2 years away.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you almost never get to level 20. So having these capstones, it's just kind of very nice window shopping. You know, you build your class and you look at that level 20 future and go, man, that's going to be so cool. But, you know, it's probably never going to happen.
Yeah, it's theoretical. So it can be, you're going to be godlike and it's something to look forward to, but we might not see it.
Yeah. The only time I've played at level 20 is when my players, which actually turned out to be a really cool idea, before we go into the final boss battle, can we level up to 20? So we had played 1 through 15, and then they knew they were headed to the castle where the final boss was going to be, and they're like, can we be level 20? Can we level up? I was like, sure, because I hadn't prepped that. So for the final battle, they got to play at level 20, which was cool.
I like that. I might steal that.
My players
like that
are always trying to come up with creative ways to get to play at higher levels.
Yeah, and the Planescape module that came out last year, maybe earlier this year, it went from, I think, levels 3 to 10, and then there's a jump up to level 17 for like the final chapter. I think there's a story reason for why that happens, but I didn't read it. I heard it wasn't very good, so I didn't.
I don't think many people did.
All right, are we ready to jump on to Sorcerer now? Is that what we're doing next?
I thought we might talk about Cleric because we know so little about Sorcerer.
We didn't get all the Sorcerer. We got a lot of the Sorcerer, but I feel like we didn't get the article yet. Or if we did, it happened in the last hour or two.
Yeah, we didn't get the article, and then the video, Jeremy Crawford he talked about the main class for only about 5 minutes. Then they dubbed into subclasses. So I was thinking we could talk about Cleric first, and then if we run out of time, we'll save Sorcerer for next week.
All right, that makes sense.
Alrighty then. Level 1. You can, kind of like the Druid, you can select between 2 sacred roles. Protector grants proficiency in martial weapons and heavy armor, and the Thaumaturge to gain an extra cantrip and add wisdom modifier to intelligence, arcana, or religion checks, which is essentially just a mirror image of what they did with the Druid, right? The Druid got the ability to add wisdom to nature checks, which makes a lot of sense, right? Because why should Druids be bad at naturing? They should be good at naturing.
Right.
And clerics being good at arcana and religion seems to make sense. Yes to montage.
Yeah, we all strongly agree to the montage suggestion in the comments. That was not coordinated.
Well, what I just realized is because when we played that one shot, Jim, you made me an admin. So when I was replying to the chat, I was replying for both of us. So
gotcha.
So I was speaking for both you and me.
That's okay. I approve of that. I have no problem with that.
But I just switched it, so now when I reply to chat, it'll only be me.
Okay. You may speak with the divine voice of the Wizards and the Wordslingers.
Feels like a real missed opportunity there, Brad. I mean, we could have.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Do you guys have any thoughts on the Divine Order here?
I think it's great. I like the options that they're giving. And that seems to be a theme across all the classes, is there more options when you're designing your character. And so I like the fact that they did this for both the cleric and the druid, where you can build your cleric as more of a spell casting priest, or you can build your cleric more like the AD&D, Knight Templar kind of design. So I like it.
Because before, martial weapons and heavy armor was limited to war domain and maybe life domain. Maybe I think there was maybe one or
I think Tempest,
Tempest.
but it was subclass based.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were making the choices for you. Now you get to make them for yourself, which is just.
Yeah, you know, when they announced that there would be 48 subclasses for the 12 classes and that was it, and a lot of people said, well, what about this feature and what about that feature, and you know, we're going to lose all of this stuff. And it seems like they've done a pretty good job of taking those desirable features from the subclasses that technically no longer exist, and they've just folded them into the base class. For a lot of these things.
Yes.
Level 2. Channel Divinity adds Divine Spark, another way for clerics to use Channel Divinity when not fighting undead. Let's see. Divine Spark is a twofer. It's a twofer. As a magic action, you can focus divine energy toward a creature you see within 30 feet, then you can choose to heal or harm them. You roll a 1d8 and add your wisdom modifier, and if you're choosing to heal, they'll recover that number in hit points. And then 2d8 at level 7, 3d8 at level 13, and 4d8 at level 18, which is interesting because it doesn't follow the usual tier levels of 5, 11, and 17. So that's interesting. But you can also force the creature to make a con saving throw and deal that number in your choice in radiant or necrotic damage if they fail to save, or half that if they succeed. So Divine Spark is just extra. It's just a finger blam ability.
Yep.
Blam, heal, blam, harm.
Yep. Well, and what this does is it gives you a useful version of your channel divinity, right? Like all the other channel divinities are situational, not always going to use them, but this one gives you one that you could use, you know, in almost any situation. You're always going to be willing to either heal somebody or do damage, right?
Yeah. Also, turn undead. So the difference between turn undead now is if the creature fails your save, they're frightened and they're also incapacitated. It still has to use its movement to get as far away as possible, but no longer uses its action to dash thanks to the incapacitated condition. Because what I'd noticed before, primarily from playing Baldur's Gate 3, in BG3, I would have Shadowheart turn the undead. They would all run away, and I'd be like, oh crap, now I just have to go chase them down.
Right.
I just have to send everybody to chase after them to kill them, because it's not like I actually wanted them to run away and get away. I want to bash them. So this is better. So if they are incapacitated, can't take
They can't take actions or reactions. Yeah.
So they still have their movement though.
So they can still run from you, but they're not running and dashing.
Yeah.
Because it is a little like immersion breaking when like the zombies turn and run, right? Like we have slow zombies in 5e when they're like, oh, these guys are cooking now. All of a sudden, it changes the tone a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, Channel Divinities at level 3 instead of level 1. I'm not sure how I feel about them standardizing all subclasses to be at level 3 now. Do you guys have thoughts on that?
I like it from a game mechanic standpoint. I don't like it from a narrative standpoint, and I don't know how to rectify that. Because if it's like my abilities as a hero come from the relationship I have with some divine source, I haven't decided what flavor those abilities are, even though they're like coming from that source. It's narratively I don't like it as much, but I do like uniformity between classes.
Yeah, it's like at level 1, you've put in your application to worship Corellon Lorathian, but it's not till level 3 that your application actually gets approved.
And it does harken back to like a level 1 cleric back in the day had nothing. You did not have a spell until level 2. At level 2, so
right.
Yeah.
Well, I think it works if we actually take like pantheism and polytheism, right? If we take that, more like what it is in the real world, right? Because D&D's divinity, right, is really like a collection of monarchies. The way it gets treated across, the editions of Dungeons and Dragons. I'm a cleric of this god, I'm a cleric of that god, but in true like polytheistic societies, they worship gods. So I think it fits. Like your level 1 cleric is just a cleric of the gods, and then as they get more powerful, they find their most divine connection out of all the gods.
I like that a lot. That'd be fun to role play. You're like, oh, I'm just, I'm playing the field. Let's see what's out there. It's like the moon goddess is pretty appealing. Oh no, I'm a death cleric now.
Yeah, and Ravenlore, with those processing times to get your application approved, it's really all who you know. If you got somebody on the inside, they can grease the wheels and move it along quickly.
Clerical work, am I right? Hi-oh.
Hey, there we go.
Sorry.
Folks. We'll be
Sorry.
here all week.
I'm gonna leave, guys. Bye.
So subclasses: Life Domain Aid has been added to domain spells. Light Domain See Invisibility has been added to domain spells. Trickery Domain new ability has been added to Invoke Duplicity. War Domain: your channel divinity can be used to cast Shield of Faith or Spiritual Weapon without using a spell slot or requiring concentration. That's pretty dope. Spiritual Weapon is a very standard cleric spell. Previous level 1 and 2 subclass abilities are accessed at level 3. Any thoughts on these?
Well, kind of not specific to cleric here, but we're giving War Domain the ability to cast these spells without concentration, right? And in the sorcerer, the Dragon Blood sorcerer, we've seen the ability to cast Summon Dragon without concentration. But yet we're too afraid to give Ranger Hunter's Mark without concentration.
I need to think about it longer, but I might be brave enough to do it. I think I'm waiting for the optimizer tubers to tell me why it's bad, but we can just do that at our tables, and I'm leaning towards doing that. I think that fixes a lot about what's bad about the Ranger. I can't make exploration a part of play without doing a lot of work, which I'm also willing to do and do at my table. But Hunter's Mark isn't concentration is a real clean, simple fix.
Yeah.
Tell me why.
Well, and it was that way in the playtest, right? Wasn't it? That one of the playtests
so.
was that way? Yeah. So
you're not wrong.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna play this game rules as written for a while, but there will be changes made eventually.
Yeah, and I think that's a healthy approach.
See what works, what doesn't work, because it's easy to be judgmental when it's just all on paper, but see it in action, see what you think, and then adjust accordingly. That's kind of my approach.
Yeah.
That seems very fair and balanced, and out of touch with commenting on things on the internet.
We're here to
maybe
get
that's why I don't have as many
Ranger.
views, right? I'm not controversial enough.
At level 5, you get Seer Undead, replaces Destroy Undead, instead deals radiant damage to every undead regardless of CR that fails their saving throw against your turn undead. Let's see how much exactly. A number of d8s equal to your wisdom modifier is how much damage it does. And I like this because going based on CR felt a little above table to me. That a PC wouldn't know the CR of a monster they're fighting. And so if you play it, you either the player might know the CR, and so the player would either then metagame or the player would waste an ability, essentially.
And you shouldn't force players to make that choice. If you're forcing players to make that decision, then then the system could be improved upon. Yeah. And I will say, Seer, great choice. I really like the image that evokes in my mind of just this radiance and like radiation damage. Just cook those zombies.
Yeah, and you really just want them. It's seared because you really just want them cooked right on the outside, just a nice.
That's what I was about to
while
say.
the inside stays pink throughout. but
Yeah.
you want to make sure you get that E. coli off the outside and sear all sides of your undead, not just the front.
Medium rare, baby. Have you been watching Delicious in Dungeons?
I love Delicious in Dungeon. Love it. Okay. Level 7 Blessed Strikes. You get 2 choices, or 1 choice between 2 things. Divine Strike, deal an additional 1d8 radiant or necrotic damage when you hit a creature with an attack roll. If you are a punchy, stabby cleric, or potent spellcasting, add your wisdom modifier to damage dealt with a cleric cantrip. What do you guys think about this?
I think design-wise, I like the choice again, like where you're giving the player the choice of how to design your cleric the way you want to between martial or spellcaster. I don't think either one of these are game-breaking. I think it's just kind of reinforcing the theme. So I think they're good.
Yeah. Ravenlore, I am also watching Delicious in Dungeon with my son. He's only 9 and doesn't get a lot of it, but we still enjoy it. Level 10, they redid Divine Intervention as a magic action. Choose any cleric spell of level 5 or lower that doesn't require a reaction. You can cast it without spending components or a spell slot, and you get it after a long rest. And I have some thoughts on this. I don't like it. I don't like that you can cast Revivify or Raise Dead without diamonds. Because the way I run my Dungeons & Dragons games is that diamonds are rare and hard to acquire to control the Raise Dead and Revivify economy. So just doing away with that, I'm not a fan. Anyone want to debate me?
No, I'm with you. I don't like it because I liked Divine Intervention as the like literal and figurative Hail Mary. Percentile die. This is almost never going to work, but when it does, ooh baby, there's not a lot of those in the game, of like risky Nova attempts. And this is clearly way better on paper for player power, but like, yeah, I see a lot of problems with it. I'm not a big fan of this change either. As a cleric player, awesome, love it. As a dungeon master, it's just bad, no likey.
Yeah, well, and I think this just reinforces the idea that 5th edition, and really 3rd edition and 4th edition, like the modern D&D was designed for the players to not get taken advantage of by bad DMs, right? Like modern D&D has so many things that are like the decision points, powers, and abilities are given to the players to use. And so the players are kind of protected from DM fiat. And I think, this is design that kind of, continues to do that. And I'm not saying that's a good or bad thing. I just think that's the biggest difference between 3rd edition forward compared to, 0, 1, and 2.
It's really interesting. It's almost like a trauma response of like abusive dungeon masters. Like, all right, let's rein that in.
Yeah,
I played a
and it's overcorrection.
I played a high level warlock, a genie a genie warlock, and at level 14 I got limited wish, which was I could cast any spell of 6th level or lower from any spell list, but it had to have a time of 1 action. So there was no Raise Dead and no Revivify because it's 10 minutes and 1 minute for those spells. And so if it had that restriction in here, choose any cleric spell that it just says doesn't require, choose any cleric spell level 5 or lower that doesn't require a reaction. But it doesn't say anything about the casting time of the spell, right? Except that it doesn't require a reaction.
It does. I wonder if that's in there and just not like worded well, because it does. It's an action. So is it? That's interesting. If it's spells that are casting time of 1 action, I still like the old Divine Intervention, but that's way better. That is an interesting limit that I didn't see that first time around. Maybe that might be implied.
Yeah, it doesn't specifically say that, but as we've already discussed, there may be some things that are not completely accurate or left off from here.
Yeah, I don't think the official like rule language has twofer in it. I think this is a different
Well, it
a
should.
different tone. That should be like a class ability. I don't know what it does yet. Maybe it's a meta magic. Twofers.
We've renamed Twin Spell to Twofer,
The twofer.
and you have to say it with a Michigan
Specking into
accent.
Minnesota.
That's a twofer. I'm gonna use my twofer ability on these two goblins over here.
God. I just wrote a whole Fargo campaign in my head based on you saying that word that way.
You betcha. All right, at level 14, you get improved Blessed Strikes. Divine Strikes damage increases to 2d8 for your punchy, stabby clerics. Potent spellcasting. When you deal damage with a cleric cantrip, you can grant yourself or another temporary hit points. So your cantrips still aren't doing a whole lot of damage, but every time you use one, you're giving somebody else temp H or yourself temp HP, which is pretty nice.
Yeah. Well, and that. I mean, it's a pretty high level ability. Most people aren't going to get it, but it incentivizes the healing aspect, right? The support part of being a cleric. So you're still able to dish out some damage while healing, and I think that's probably one of the best things we've seen out of the 5th edition cleric as a whole, is that ability to be able to heal and deal damage in the same turn. So you're not making that choice of, am I going to attack or am I going to support, right?
Yeah. Jay asks a very, very worthwhile question here. Is WotC going to give anything coming up to help DMs with all this OP character stuff? Do they intend to make the game not challenging to players? Yeah, that's a worthwhile question. Last week, as we were discussing this, we said we really want to see the new monster manual before we fully make up our minds about all of these new abilities, because if there's not tougher monsters and also better guidance for dungeon masters about how to challenge players when they have a nearly infinite number of ways to avoid things and heal themselves as much as they want. Yeah, the jury is still out, as Ryan would say.
Yeah, I think the 3 things that will kind of make or break this edition. One is the redesign of spells. We didn't see a lot of spell redesigns in the playtest, and I think that's because they have to nerf some spells, right? And we talked about before how in a playtest nobody's going to vote for nerfing, right? So except for the DMs. So seeing the spells and how they've been redesigned and see if some of those spells get nerfed, seeing the monsters like Jim was just saying, and then seeing what's in the DMG to actually support new DMs to be able to handle, running all of this for the players. That's, because otherwise this is just power creep, right? So it looks the player to be like, ooh, I can do that now. Like, my players are super excited. I've got one who mains Warlock, and he's thrilled to play the new Fey Warlock because he loves teleportation. Like, that's his thing. So he's all excited, and that's, what other players are excited for, the rogue, and so like, players are getting excited for all these cool new abilities. To break this as a game, as an edition, is if the DMs get good tools to make all this into an actual, interesting game. Yeah, but those are the 3 things I would say are paramount: is the spell redesign, monster design, and tools in the DMG.
Yeah, Twin still brings up a good point here. I do remember this from one of their videos. They said you could stick it to the DM. And yeah, when I heard that, I wanted to be like, hey, who do you think is buying these books?
Right.
Because it's not really the players. Some of them are, but few of the players are chomping at the bit to buy these books. It's us. It's the game masters. And if you're saying, well, just stick it to the DM, and be like, well, F you then. We're just not going to buy your new books.
Especially with D&D. I was going to say, especially with D&D Beyond, right? Like, now that D&D Beyond exists, my players buy even fewer books, right? Because they can log on to the campaign and use all my stuff.
Yeah.
Well, clock's ticking on that, buddy. Is my guess. Yeah, I mean, two things. One, I hate to like form any sort of take that is flirting with being anti-democratic, but voting on all of the UA stuff gives you the most powerful player characters possible, straight up. So if you're gonna do that, if you're gonna counterbalance it with the monsters, okay, great. But that's why I couldn't form takes on the UA content after like right away. I was like, player characters are better. I don't know what the rest of the game looks like right now. I don't like this, but I don't know. I'm only dealing with a third of the information, maybe.
Yeah, how the RPG makes a really good point. Is like, was part of the main problem with 4th edition, right? Is that there are plenty of people who wanted to play as a player. There just weren't many people who wanted to run it as a DM.
And
for me, it was. Oh, for me, it was because I grew up playing older editions, and 4th edition didn't feel like D&D to me, right? So as a DM, I just didn't want to run it because it didn't feel like the game I was used to.
Yeah, it feels like a misunderstanding of their customer base. Honestly, I mean, it's a business as much as this is all literally fun and games, and that's how we view things. Like a lot of people up there are thinking about it as far as the business goes. Hey, there's 5 players in one DM. How do we sell more stuff to the players? Because there's more of them. Yeah. And that would be true in a different kind of industry, perhaps. But like the Dungeon Master is the choke point. The Dungeon Master is the guy with the shelf full of books. The players show up, and maybe they have the PHB. Maybe they have Tasha's if you've created like way better character subclasses in there, so they bought it. But without a Dungeon Master, you don't have a game. So it's I'm not saying burn it down. I'm saying I'm waiting for the DMG. They've made some promises. I hope they keep them. And I'm really waiting for the monster manual. And it's going to be a very interesting 4 months running these characters against, decade-old modules or something. I'm going to be doing a lot of homebrewing, and it's fun. I'm glad I like that.
Yeah.
But we shall see.
Fred is that's not. Sorry, Twin Steel. I was trying to click on this comment. 4E was hard to run after level 4. So complex. 5e is going that way. Yeah, we've talked about this in some of our previous Casual Fridays, that things like weapon mastery, they're adding so many more things you can do on a turn. That, when I followed all the UA, the 1D&D UA pretty religiously, and most of my feedback was like, no, stop, don't. You need to add rules that simplify things, not make them more complicated, which is why my favorite rule from the UA is not making it, and I'm so mad, the new exhaustion rule. As just a couple weeks ago, Brad and I were talking about exhaustion, and we couldn't remember all of the 6 steps because they're crap. But the new exhaustion rule was a point of exhaustion is just a -1 to all of your D20 tests. And I was like, yes, this is a new rule that simplifies the game. This is what you should be doing, because they shouldn't be remaking 5e to please the grognards. They should be remaking 5e to bring in more casual gamers, more people who are curious because they saw it on Stranger Things, or their friend was talking about Critical Role. Those are the people they should be trying to get in the game. I think, look, it's so easy to learn how to play. It's you can figure it out in an afternoon. Don't worry, we're going to take care of you, casual gamer. Come on in here. It's safe. But now they're like, you get weapon mastery. It's going to double the length of combat. Don't you want to try our new game now? But all those casual gamers, they weren't loud voices in the UA process. They weren't spending 20 minutes to fill out the feedback survey, right? Those people don't care. Selection bias. That's why I don't trust polls anymore. It's like, who's answering the phone when a random number calls? It's the same. It's a very specific subset that you've factored into your decision making, maybe putting too much weight on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Stephen Glicker from Roll for Combat, who makes a lot of third-party stuff for both Pathfinder 2 and 5e. So he knows a lot of the designers for the freelance guys from both games. And he said that when they were working on this edition, Wizards of the Coast hired several freelancers who had worked on Pathfinder 2. And that makes sense now that I've seen weapon mastery and some of these other features. Is this does feel like we're shifting closer to Pathfinder 2 in the level of complexity.
Yes.
So
their influences are showing. Even focus points on the monk it's a Pathfinder term. Like I see it. They're pulling from They're learning from Pathfinder, but like, and I ran Pathfinder 2e and loved it. But I've run a bunch of other stuff and loved that too. And I wish they took some lessons from simpler games, cleaner running, smoother running games.
Is the casual gamer getting caught up in other games like Shadowdark? Well, Shadowdark is certainly easier to play than 5e. I think a lot of those casual gamers are going to go to Shadowdark or Daggerheart. Because Daggerheart is going to have all that critical role weight behind it. And I've been running it for a little while now, and it is more simple than 5. It's not a rules light game, but it's definitely easier to pick up and play than 5e.
It's funny. I think a lot of casual gamers are more likely to land in Shadowdark or something like it, and Shadowdark's a great game. But there is D&D is Kleenex. D&D is Band-Aid. D&D is a lot of people, if not like the vast majority of people playing TTRPGs, don't know what TTRPG means. They just know D&D, which presents an opportunity as a dungeon master to be like, hey, do you want to play some D&D? And you run Shadowdark, and no one's the wiser. Remember that. But Dungeons and Dragons is the entry point for a lot of. That's why I've focused so much of my content on 5e, because that's people are going to come through that, and I want them to enjoy that experience.
Yeah.
But that's the top of the funnel for the vast majority of people. For good or ill. Yeah. That's the reality. That's on a moral judgment.
That's a good point. The casual gamer probably would have no idea that you are actually playing Shadowdark or Tiny Dungeon or some Powered by the Apocalypse thing.
Chaotic good, baby. It's not lawful, but it's good.
Yeah, I recently ran Shadowdark at an event at my local game store, and everybody at the table, none of them had played Shadowdark before. Some of them hadn't even heard of it before. But by the time we were done with the one shot, they were all like, this is so much better than 5e. This is what I'm going to play. They walked away from the table, and if my local store had Shadowdark books in the store, they probably would have bought them that night. Like, that's how much they were like, this is the new D&D for me. So that was the response from at least those casual gamers when they sat down and played Shadowdark with me.
Hey, Ryan, you have a hard out in 2 minutes, right?
I can give you another 15. Yeah.
Oh, well, I have a hard out in 2 minutes.
Oh, wait, no, actually, no, I have to leave. I'll take the fall here. Sorry.
Because that kid's too young to drive himself home from camp. But so we didn't get to the Sorcerer, which I think is fine, because maybe by next Friday they'll have out an article on it, and maybe I know they were also going to do an article on metamagic and Eldritch Invocations, so that would be a good thing to talk about. So you can tune in next time to learn more about that, and maybe we'll talk about it. Maybe the three of us will be here, maybe only two, or maybe only one of us. You won't know until it happens.
But hopefully we'll all be here, because we definitely had a good chat this week. So bringing all three of us together seems to be working.
Yes.
Yeah, I had a great time.
And so thank you for watching and listening and commenting. And we're going to get out of here. I'm Jim. That's
Brad
pointing at you.
From Diarden.
Hey, I'm Ryan Doyle from the Verdigris Table. Nice to meet you. Bye.
We got to plan something for that for sure. Okay.
We're working this out. It's casual.
We got to rehearse an outro.
All right, guys.
But thanks, everybody.